Well, welcome to the CU Home Team Bruce Night event. This is, I think, our 9th year in a row. COVID put us on Zoom, and then everything else has been online, or in person, I mean. And this has been such a fun event for all of us who attend and for us to host. Bruce is in the know for what's happening in Champaign. I'm excited for all you're going to learn tonight. And may I first introduce our team to you too, the CU Home Team. I'll start out with Nikki Bray. Nikki will wave her hand, and she's our Director of Operations. Standing next to Nikki is Jose Gamino. He's a realtor who specializes with buyers. Standing right here is Charlotte Poloquin. She's our branding and marketing person. Here is my husband, Dale Crane, who's been a realtor for how many years?
45.
That's so old. Older than all of you, many of you here. 45 years. I am Becky Crane, and we have two other realtors who work with us who are enjoying a sunshiny place at the moment, and that would be Kristen Dilley and Natalie Nielsen. All right. This has been a most interesting couple of years, as you all well know. And for real estate, it has been a fascinating time that we have never experienced before, even the 42, 45-year-old realtor sitting in the front row. And let's begin with looking at a bit of data to help you get a feel for what's happened over the last 2 years in Champaign, Urbana, and Savoy. We're going to start with a story, and it's the story of a family that we helped, Stuart and Terry. Now, Stuart and Terry connected with us in 2020, right as the shutdown was starting. What they wanted to do was find a place in the country with a machine shed. They didn't have to buy, they wanted to buy. Well, the market became so frenzied that they stepped back. Enter 2022, late summer, Terry and Stuart connected with us again, and they said, we know that the value of our house has gone up so much, and it looks like there's not many homes for sale like ours. So we're thinking it's a good time to sell. Let's get started looking again. So we did, and we found a place for them out in the country, and they were able to get it a little bit below the asking price. Very unheard of for the last 2 years. They did not participate in a multiple offer, also unheard of in the last 2 years. They were able to add on their home inspection. Also, many buyers had to forego that the last 2 years in order to win the house in a multiple offer situation. So they bought a house, and they also then sold their house. Their house that they sold quickly, not in a multiple offer, but sold at asking price, not above. What their house did was rise with the values of the market, and that's where it sold. We think this is what we're going to see in 2023. All right, let's go to the next page. Home prices obviously went up. Now, what we're pulling here is from a company that we, as a team, have worked with for probably 10, 15, almost 20 years. Buffini and Company, they do something called bold predictions every year, and they're pretty spot on. This is their information of national trends for 2023. The first is that they're anticipating home prices to rise over last year by about 5.4%. Champaign-Urbana has been the steadiest market as long as I've been a realtor for 25 plus years. And it would be typical for us to go anywhere from 2 to 4% every year increase in value. So we're still going to see a little bit better than that, probably, but not bonkers as we did the last couple of years. We're hoping, nationally, they're saying the inventory is going to rise 23% over what last year's was. I personally believe that this is going to be because we'll have more days on market. So we'll accumulate. I hope we'll also accumulate numbers. We'll see. And then interest rates are expected to rise slightly. And so far, if you've been tracking with that at all, they've gone up to above the 6, not below 7. But last night at 8 o'clock, I had one sent to me from a lender, and it was 5.75 for a 30-year fixed rate. So they're going to move around a little bit. We still expect them to be under 7. There's an expression in real estate where we say you rent the rate, you buy the house, because you can always refinance when rates go down, but you'll own your house. All right, next slide. Now this is what's very interesting, is to look at a historical context for interest rates. I hope you could see the years here. This is the crazy town, right? 1982, and some of you might remember this, where sellers paid the buyers points down in order to get them to buy the house, because it was so desperado for sellers. And then we had this really interesting drop right there at 2020, 2021, and we did a slight increase, still historically low. And if we end up under 7, we're still historically great. This is the historical perspective which we always need to bring into mind. Harder for first-time buyers and young buyers, easier for us who are older. Let's go to the next one, please. All right, so this is looking at Champaign, Urbana-Savoy, single-family homes, not condos or zero lots, not apartments. We pulled the data. In 2022, our average sales price was $221,718. In 2021, it was $188,713. Our days on market were short in 2022 of 31, a tad longer in 22 and 21. And look at our closings. That's an interesting number to number. We double checked it last night because it lined up so kind of perfectly to make sure it was correct. All right, let's explore this more. Looking again at Champaign, Urbana-Savoy, single-family homes only, a lot of the data that you'll read in newspapers and online is Champaign County. So that's going to look different than Champaign, Urbana-Savoy. We kind of pulled it in to help you get more of a finger on the pulse of what this local market's doing. So in January 18, you can see obviously that our average sales price was there, and then we take this gray whoop, all the way up, and we did a rapid reset. There were some neighborhoods that absolutely needed a reset, but we would typically see it taken over time and eventually get there. One in particular is Southwood Subdivision. The early starter homes there, I think, sat for years at $100 a square foot, predictably. It was time for them to do a reset. We just did a rapid reset, and now we expect that the prices will be steady. So again, Champaign, Urbana-Savoy, single-family homes, and this is so mind-blowing for those of us who've been selling homes for a while. In 2018, the number of homes for sale in January was 702. I ran them last night at 8 o'clock, and it was 94.
That's single family.
Single-family homes, from $0 to the highest dollar, 94 homes. That's nothing. You can see historically how dramatically low we are on inventory. And that's going to be the key in 2023. Interest rates might go up a little bit. It's going to be somewhat of a non-issue if people get educated to that. It's the low inventory that may still bring about multiple offers. We're still going to have people moving out of rentals into first-time buying. They're going to free that person up to buy their next house. And all of that is going to drive the market. And we might still see some multiple offers, but I don't think we're going to see the 20, 30, 40,000 over asking price that we did the last 2 years. So local trends, this is so interesting too. This is what we call absorption rate, and on a simple scale, it's taking the number of homes that are for sale dividing into it the number of homes that are currently under contract waiting to close between buyer and seller. Right now, if no other homes came on the market and the pace of sales remained exactly the same, we would sell out of every home in Champaign, Urbana, Savoy in 1.2 months. That's how low the inventory is. So if you're a seller, you're looking at that and thinking, this might be a good year to sell, and it just depends on where you're going to go and what you need to buy next. Okay. We have an expression also that says that all real estate is local. Not only is Champaign-Urbana different from Chicago, Illinois is different than Florida, but your neighborhood is different than somebody else's neighborhood. In the old days, we used what we called a grid map, and the grid that you lived in was different than values than somebody else's grid that they lived in. If you're curious about the value of your property within your grid, you're curious what happened to it over the last 2 years, just reach out to us. We are so happy to run numbers and let you know what it is. You, friends, family, just let us know. We are happy to help you. Right now, I'd like to introduce to you all Bruce Knight, the Planning and Development Director for the City of Champaign.
All right. Up here in a second.
While they're pulling the slides up, good evening. Thank you all for being here. It's always a pleasure to speak to this group. I like to say it's always a group that's friendly and asks good questions and is very knowledgeable. So looking forward to being here. I have been Planning and Development Director for the City of Champaign for 34 years as of last September. So I've seen a lot of changes in this community, and I'm at the age of in the place of my life where on like a daily basis people ask me when I'm going to retire. So I'll just say not quite yet. I'm still enjoying what I do and plan to stick around for a while longer. This was a year that, while interesting, didn't really have the big, sexy, exciting projects that we've had in some years, and it's a reset year, I think. Coming out of the pandemic, people still figuring things out. Logistics issues in terms of getting materials, cost of materials is really high, and so we've seen a lot of projects that are ready to go but not going yet because they've been stalled. Reminder of what my department does: we have 3 functional areas of responsibility. We do long-range planning for the city. We manage land development activities in the city, and we promote economic development in the city. So those are our 3 functional areas, and I've got a staff of roughly 10 that work with me to get those things done. This, I think, is a really interesting slide. These are the building permits we reviewed over the course of this year in the planning department. Building safety gets a few others, plumbing, electrical, and some of the things don't even come over to our shop. But you can see number 1 was rooftop solar. Pretty interesting. There's a lot of good tax breaks and just a lot of people doing rooftop solar. But beyond that, it's remodels, it's maintenance work, it's same thing with single family and multifamily. And then clear down here, you get to some new commercial and some new multifamily. But it's been slow in terms of new construction in our community. Some of the notable new projects that are out there, and some of these are projects that have pulled building permits but are still sitting waiting to start. But Raising Cane, a lot of people were excited about that. There's one on Green Street, but one up on North Prospect as well. Stay Apt Apartments is kind of a suites, a long extended stay type product that's pulled a building permit but has not started at all yet. So that's another one on hold. Taco Bell's moving on Springfield Avenue. I don't know if you've ever noticed, there's been a wooded lot on Springfield Avenue immediately south of Country Fair for years. Heavily wooded, never been touched. It's like the only undeveloped site in that stretch, and Taco Bell managed to buy it, and they're gonna move there. So McDonald's up on North Neal is tearing it down completely and building a new McDonald's there. We got a car wash, a Heavy Spoon downtown, cereal and ice cream. Interesting concept, but people seem to enjoy it, and I encourage you to try it out. Got some improvements with Espresso Royale. Biaggi's remodeled, some new restaurants on Green Street. Green Street's kind of forever turning over their restaurants. It's a tough place to survive for a restaurant, especially if you're not a national chain. The rents are high, and there's relatively few people there in the summer, so you're really trying to survive in a 9-month period. Let's see. Yummy Future is an interesting one. That's a new coffee shop on Green Street that is a robotic coffee shop. Some engineering students from Illinois invented this robotic coffee maker, and they're franchising them. And the first one is on Green Street. So if you want to see the future, you can go down and get your coffee from a robot. What's that?
Do you have to tip the robot?
No, I don't think you do. That's part of the beauty of it, right? So Ollie's, some people are excited about Ollie's coming to town. Smoky Bones is going back where Smoky Bones originally was, next to the mall. Anyway, so those are some of the things that we've new commercial uses we've seen pulled permits over the course of the year. So last year I made some predictions, and I don't know, kind of hit and miss. The first one was that the coalition we built during the pandemic would pay off for us. I think that's happening, but it's one of those things that's hard to measure. But we continue to meet with that coalition of various agencies that started meeting over the pandemic and trying to take advantage of that. We did grow, and one of the key areas of growth, of course, ag tech's been really big for us. Med tech is an area that I think as the new Illinois College of Medicine gets more and more established is going to, part of their curriculum is to invent new medical technology. And so we're hoping that spins off into our local economy. But manufacturing's been really interesting because EV, electric vehicle manufacturing, we've become a real popular location for suppliers of Rivian. Rivian hires so fast in the Bloomington Normal market that the suppliers don't want to be over there because they can't compete with them for employees. So they like to be close, but not that close. So we're getting a lot of that spin-off. Downtown Champaign, I think, has rebounded. Still not where it was pre-pandemic, but is rebuilding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some incentives we're going to put in place that will hopefully help that continue. Willard Airport is still recovering. We have not recovered our full air service from before, much less gotten any new routes, and that continues to be a work in progress. We are expensive. We're the most expensive airport in the Midwest. That's frankly probably a good thing for us right now because it's keeping American here because they're profitable. They've abandoned quite a few airports across the country, and so we definitely want to keep our commercial air service, even if it's expensive. And then we did see a slowdown of large-scale apartment construction, and we've seen a lot of smaller apartment buildings in the core of the community going up instead. New construction and development activity does continue to boost our economy, but has slowed way down, as I have already pointed out. Just the cost of construction has really slowed that down. The Aloft Hotel, we've recently met with Doug Altenberger. It's still something he's working on, but they've had to work through roughly 30% increase in the original cost of building that. Financing hotels is just coming back after the really difficult time hotels had during the pandemic. The Yards project, you all, I'm sure, read that the university decided not to pursue hockey. That completely changed our plans for the part of the development south of Logan. The part of the development north of Logan is still working through the logistical issues of increased costs, just like so many others. So that's been stalled a little bit right now as well. And Bristol Park has done exceptionally well. They're getting ready to start the next phase, which will be affordable senior housing, and we're excited to see that move forward. So some hit and miss there, as I said. So what's going to be happening in the coming year? Well, first of all, the University Research Park is adamant that they want to add housing to their mix. They would like to make that more of a live-work space down there, and so they worked with one developer over the course of the last year. This was their project that they had laid out, and it did not work financially, so they've moved on to a second developer that they're working with. So we'll see what happens with that, but we're hopeful that development will move forward. I think, more and more people want to live close to where they work, and so having that opportunity in the research park is something they're working towards. The downtown plaza is something we get asked about by lots of people, and we had in the last year applied for a state grant, a $3 million state grant to try and advance that project. As part of that, we had done some additional design work on the next phase, the first phase of the plaza really, which included some improvements to the existing one main plaza as well as extending it north and adding a stage. Which we really need in downtown. We need a plug-and-play space where you can hold community events easily, quickly, set up. You don't have to block off streets and all of that. And so it looks like that we may be able to identify some one-time revenue. The city's sales tax dollars over the course of the last couple of years did the opposite of what we originally projected when the pandemic started. They went up significantly. We've had significant growth in sales tax dollars. And so I think we're going to be able to invest some of those in trying to advance the plaza and move that forward. This is the vision plan that was put together pre-pandemic. And, the idea of having a civic space in the core of downtown for people to gather for events, for everyday kinds of activities, et cetera. You can see here that this is the initial phase with the stage right here that we're pretty much set to go on, and if we can identify the money, we'll hopefully move fairly quick on that. Phase 2 then would be to complete the street wall along Neal Street here, which would include adding back a sidewalk, making it more of an interactive relationship between the plaza and the street, and also add some parking back in along the front of the buildings there. So those would be the next two phases to hopefully move forward if we can identify the funding. A little closer up view of phase 1 there with the stage. Section 3, Main Street will see a major reinvestment. So Main Street in Champaign is kind of a 2-block long stretch of street in downtown Champaign. And a number of things have happened there. Dr. Youngerman, the owner of the Joseph Kuhn block there and the railroad properties, they got a $3 million grant from the state to renovate the Joseph Kuhn building. So they are planning to start that in the coming year. That'll include adding upper floor residential on that building, which will be spectacular. They also put in a proposal when we issued a request for proposals for our parking lot there next to Jupiter's on the north side of Main Street to build this building here that you see at 47 East Main. Again, be ground floor commercial with upper floor residential. And we're excited about that project, hopefully moving forward. I think the plan is to do the work on Kuhn's first since it's grant funded, and then they'd come back and do this afterwards. One of the other projects that's ongoing right now is they're renovating 29 East Main, the old Skins and Tins building, and Fire Doll Studios is going to move in there. Now, if you haven't been in Fire Doll Studios, it's a candle maker, but it's art. It's incredible art. She has a small store right now that is south of University Avenue on the east side of Neal Street, and a big part of her business is to hold candle making events. People come in and groups come in and make candles and have a couple glasses of wine while they're doing it. So they're actually going to be fitted out for a space in this new building to do that. With a serving facility and everything. So they're really excited about it. But I'd encourage you to check out her work. It's really, really incredible. And then this is the railroad yard space that is north of the Coons building, which Dr. Youngerman also owns, and that'll be upgraded as well.
Awesome.
Where's that at, Bruce? Can you run that back? I'm lost there.
Yeah, it's immediately north of Coons. So the old News Gazette building would be kitty corner across from here, and the city's parking lot's right across the street. And so it's if you drive north on Walnut, it'd be on your right once you pass the Skins and Tins building.
Okay. That'll look cool.
How's the parking, because both, if they're putting residential up there, plus the previous slides where it looks like they're eating up some of that parking, what's?
Yeah, so Dr. Youngerman controls a lot of parking back in this area back here. And so he'll enhance that and make better use of that. That city lot there is very inefficient. It has like 18 parking spaces in it. It's not a well laid out lot, so yeah.
To the deck, the parking deck, is that how?
Yeah, parking deck. The plan, of course, is there will be a deck built as part of the expansion of the Illinois Terminal project as well. So we'll have decks on either corner of downtown at that point in time.
Cool.
So we'll begin design work to transform what is the oldest sections of streetscape in downtown. Neal Street from Main to Chester, right at the city building, as well as Park Street from Neal over to Randolph, and then the old Taylor Street Plaza, as well as Taylor Street where it now dead ends into the plaza. So that's work that was done back in 1986. It's definitely tired. There's a lot of tripping hazards and the like. So this year we're starting a design study to scope out these projects, get better cost estimates, and then we'll build them into our capital improvement plan and hope to do those within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe in a phased approach. So some pieces may go earlier. Park in particular has got some really bad tripping hazards and ADA compliance issues. So that's one that may get prioritized and pushed up. So last year, council approved some ordinance changes to make accessory dwelling units legal in Champaign. And accessory dwelling units, if you watch the flip it and buy it shows, everybody's looking for a property they can do an accessory dwelling unit on. So we allow those now in Champaign. They come in a variety of possible forms, whether it's detached, conversion of a garage, attached to a garage, an expansion of a garage. You can also do them inside your house or an expansion of your house. There's some regulations we put in place that guide those. One of our, at that time, assistant city attorneys, now the city attorney is Fred Stavens, retired. He's got an in-law that lives with them, and he really wanted to build one. But when he checked it out, in today's construction prices, it was just too expensive. But I think we'll see. We've been talking to several people that are interested in trying to do one, and I think one or more of those will likely come through and be our first accessory dwelling unit, at least first legal one. They're out there. Garden Hills. Garden Hills is the largest single-family residential neighborhood in the city. Over 1,200 single-family housing units. It has suffered as a neighborhood that was built in the county back in the day, and they did not require adequate infrastructure at that time. They've had severe flooding problems. The streets are not in good condition, no sidewalks, no streetlights. And so really thanks to a great extent to the ARPA money that the city got as a result of the pandemic, along with the fact that we're creating a new tax increment finance district to help, we are advancing a really aggressive series of infrastructure projects. At the last regular city council meeting, the council awarded the bids for a street lighting project in the neighborhood to the tune of $4.4 million. Put street lights at every intersection and mid-block point throughout the neighborhood. So huge change. And then we'll be following that with a major drainage project. We bought the properties along the north side of Hedge Road, and it will be a long kind of linear detention basin that we're building. Construction on that will start this summer. And as well as you may have read over the last summer, we did a pop-up park in the neighborhood called the Hedge Pop Park, and it was hugely popular. And so we're working with the Park District on an intergovernmental agreement where, as part of our project, we'll build a new park essentially in the same location where the Pop Park was, and the Park District will take it over and maintain it once we build it. So, there's not been any park space south of the railroad tracks really ever to speak of in that neighborhood, and it's been a real crying need. So all of that is moving forward. Huge reinvestment in that neighborhood, and hopefully will help turn it around. Sales tax receipts, I mentioned they've been really high. We think that's going to flatten out and come back to more normal ranges. You can see here some of the, this is citywide food and beverage gross receipts. So while, we always have ups and downs, you can see the big drop during the pandemic. We've been slowly going back up, and then actually really exceeded what had happened pre-pandemic there for a stretch. So we think that's going to stabilize and level out. This is downtown food and beverage, and so again, you can see we actually reached a point where we got back, ahead of what we were doing back in the pre-pandemic era. But recovering from a steep decline during the pandemic there also. Downtown gross sales, this has been a little bit more of a slow return. And then we talked, Dale and I were talking about Country Fair. You may have seen in the paper, Country Fair is for sale. The owner, who is a real estate developer out of Cleveland, who has pretty much just milked this property for all it's worth and not put any money back into it, has it up for sale. It's not cheap, so we'll see what happens. But that, along with the Champaign Park apartments and the challenges we're facing right now with those, again, you may have read in the paper, we've got a New York owner in that case that has bought those properties, and the boilers are failing in many of the buildings, and they've been without heat over the course of the winter, and we had to condemn a bunch of them. So those properties potentially also come into the mix as we look at possibly creating a new tax increment finance district here and looking for ways to incent redevelopment and reinvestment in what is now actually the geographic center of Champaign. Important area, really busy intersection, and we've been talking to a number of our local developers to see if any of them, or maybe a group of them, want to take this on and see if we can't get it out of the hands of an absentee owner.
Starbucks seems to be doing well there.
The Starbucks seems to do well wherever they go, don't they? There's something about about Starbucks, and the one thing I'll say about that Starbucks is it's a lot better design than the one that's at Carriage Center. There's actually stacking spaces for people that get in line to buy coffee, and they're not spilling out into the traveled way. So that's good. Gun violence has been an issue in our community. I think across the country we've seen increases in gun violence during the pandemic. The city council of Champaign adopted a blueprint to reduce gun violence, a very aggressive document. I think unlike really anything we've seen across the country, that includes a combination of building our police department back up and putting in place social programs to try and address, not just the symptoms, but the root causes that lead to many of those problems. And, I think we've seen some success. If you haven't met our new police chief, Tim Tyler, he is a really, really dynamic personality. He's a strong leader, and I think he's doing really a great job. They are having a lot of success. Another thing the council did was, put in place bonuses for experienced officer hires to attract people that could go right to work. A new police officer that goes through the academy, it's 6 to 8 months before they can go out on the street from the time we hire them. So when we can hire an experienced officer and skip that, it's a huge bonus for the community. But that's been really exciting, I think, to see our council be that aggressive around that and really try and tackle some of those issues. Part of that was in the last budget, council put aside $500,000 for economic development incentives around new employment, small business assistance, and we're looking at possibly doing some pilot projects in our downtown area, trying to promote new business growth in vacant storefronts that we have in downtown. So that's something we're working on right now and hope to roll out in the spring. And I think will really be exciting to see the potential for new businesses that otherwise probably couldn't have afforded to get started in our downtown, but can get their footing and get started before they have to pay the full cost of being in that location. So, and that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Yeah.
The Gramercy Park and the country fair, I'm normally not big on government intervention in a lot of projects, but couldn't the government, i.e. the city of Champaign, pressure them through condemnation and other things, either unload it because it's not profitable or get it tore down, be aggressive in their ordinance application?
So one of the challenges with the city of Champaign using eminent domain to take a property like that is in Illinois, you cannot use economic development as a public purpose. So there would have to be a public purpose that meets the test in Illinois. Potential blight abatement is a potential. Especially once we establish it in a tax increment finance district, which under state law demonstrates that it's blighted property. But it's a tricky thing. We just have to be careful about not, like at one point in time when we were working with Unit 4 and they were looking at high school locations, we suggested that as a potential high school location, be a great public purpose that you could use eminent domain to take the property and then you've got a clear public purpose of what you're putting back. But that's something certainly that's potentially on the table.
In this case, I wasn't thinking so much eminent domain. I was thinking of bringing down, with the inspections and not condemnation, whatever you're doing now to shut them down, where if they don't remodel them, they can't use them.
Champaign Park Apartments, that's definitely a possibility.
In other words,
There's also aggravated nuisance that can be used as a basis
public
for.
health concern also with the apartments and everything
Yeah.
else.
So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. So.
In other words, nudge them along.
It's a huge complex. It's like 250 units, and all but 4 buildings at one point in time within the last month were under condemnation and not occupiable. So it's a real problem.
Yeah. I'm excited about Garden Hills, what that can do there. It's needed it for so long. Once used to be this nice neighborhood for older folks. They lived there forever. What else are you really excited about that you're really looking forward to?
Well, I think the opportunity around Country Fair is something that if we can get it in the right hands, we've got the potential to really do something exciting there. I think we're still working hard on what's the right development for the yards property south of Logan. Talking with the developers on a regular basis. I'm still excited about the potential for that and what it could do to help stabilize downtown and grow the local economy there.
Yeah.
Those are both projects that I think are exciting. We've been waiting to see if any of the other kind of national retailers that typically do would follow Costco.
Right.
Costco is paying off their the economic development incentive that is a rebate of their sales tax dollars at a faster rate than was projected at the start. So I think they're doing well, and we're hopeful that there might be other uses that might follow. So, yeah.
Bruce, thanks for coming out tonight and talking to us. I appreciate your time. So Carl is like a force here in town, and they've got Carl at the Fields. So do you see Carl like growing outwards past the Fields, heading towards Muhammad? Like, do you know anything about them? And
Well, I think they made a major investment in Carl at the Fields, and they own a large chunk of property immediately north of their office building, which, their long-term plans there were to build a general purpose hospital, turn the existing campus into more of a specialized medicine campus, the Mills Breast Cancer Center and, more uses like that, as well as continued growth of the College of Medicine. But I think they're going to continue to invest in that Carl at the Fields property and grow that location.
do you see them going more towards Champaign versus Urbana?
Yeah, I think they made a decision to. They wanted to be in a interstate. They're very much a regional medical operation, and they wanted to have a major operation on the interstate there, where it's easy for customers as well as employees that are coming in from a distance to get in and out. So I think they'll grow that location. I don't think they're going to abandon their Urbana campus, but it'll change.
So what other large players do you see coming into town? Like, we've got Kraft, we've got the U of I, we've got Carl. Like, do you see any other? We've got Costco that's exceeding expectations. Like, do you see any other large franchisees coming in?
You know, it's hard to say. We've been working with Quick Trip for a long time on a new gas station truck stop at the corner of Neal and I-74, the old Holiday Inn Gateway property there, which I think they'll do a nice job with that. It's been a slow, again, a lot of logistical issues, a lot of cost issues. But we're reviewing their sign package right now, and usually when they get down to the sign package, it means they're about ready to go. So I think this year we'll see that project move forward. One of the commercial permits on our list was EpiWorks. EpiWorks is a local success story. They make silicon wafers that go into cell phones and the like, very high-tech company. They grew out of the research park and moved up to the northwest corner of Champaign, up there by the Microtel, and they're continuing to expand. So they had a commercial permit to build out some space they had inside the building, which is adding employment. Starfire is another local success story. Grew up in the research park, just bought the old Patterson Dental building, which was out off of Duncan Road, north of 150, and they're growing rapidly. That's another exciting one. And then, like I said, the Rivian impact on us is really significant, and I think will continue to be. They're growing so fast over there in Bloomington Normal that we're getting a lot of spin-off benefit from that as well. So. And then ag tech continues to be a real success story in our community. We've had a number of Agrible is one, number of startups out of the research park that have been purchased by major agricultural companies, and they're continuing to grow them here locally. So that's been exciting for our local economy as well.
Just a personal question. Do you think ever that Champaign will merge with Muhammad?
With Muhammad? I would guess not. I mean, there's been attempts to merge Champaign and Urbana that have failed. I think people, want. They look for different personalities in the communities they live in, and we've got choice here. Champaign has been kind of the micro-urban, more business-oriented community. You got Muhammad and St. Joe that are kind of more bedroom community, small townish feel to them. And people kind of seek out what they want. And I think we have a boundary agreement with Muhammad that we negotiated a number of years ago. So we've got an understanding of where we're both growing to and meeting up at some point in time. It's a line that's basically it's.
Rising Railroad?
What's that?
Rising Railroad?
It kind of jogs along, and part of it is tied to the school district boundaries as well. So, but it's hard to describe. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the recreation center supposed to be getting built before too long?
Not a lot. I know they're working on it and they're getting close, but yeah, don't know too much about that.
That's supposed to be over by the jail.
Yeah.
By
Yeah.
The Brookins building
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in between there.
They got a bunch of land out there,
Yeah,
so.
they have the sign up where the money, and now all the sign's gone. It's like, did they just give up or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
don't.
what happened,
I don't know
so.
what the status of that is. So,
It's
yeah.
nice to have a nice one
Yeah,
there.
I think the money's available for that, so I think they'll go ahead with it.
Good.
Wasn't there a dedicated grant to support the flight from Willard to DC?
There is there was a grant that was. There's two pieces to that. There was a grant that was obtained, a small airport development grant, and then there was also a guarantee put together by a lot of local businesses in the communities towards that as well. And those are both still there. And in fact, there's an air development conference coming up in the spring that Tim Bannon, the executive director out at the airport, and his staff will be at to try and sell the idea. The speculation is that right now, American Airlines at National Airport in D.C. is getting a waiver from having to use all of the gate slots that they have. If that waiver goes away, then they're going to have to start using those. And our airport is actually one of the really logical airports to pick up service as part of that if that happens. So I think our speculation is whenever they quit granting them the waiver, it was a pandemic thing, that it's likely we'll be able to pick up that service.
Is there any plans for like the First Street area, like from Washington to Green Street, what do they call it, Newtown?
First Street, there's a number of things going on. There's a Boneyard Creek project there that needs to be finished out, and as part of that, the park Skelton Park that's right there at the corner is going to be improved and enhanced as part of the African American Cultural Heritage Trail that's being worked on. That's kind of going to be a celebration of black musicians in the area at that corner. And then we actually just made some changes to the tax increment finance district to put all of that area back into a TIF district. So we'll have some tools in place to encourage reinvestment and redevelopment there. So probably the first step is the township, as part of their operation of Prosperity Gardens, is going to rebuild the old, there was a police evidence building at one point in time, but I think it's an old railroad building that's right there at the north edge of our surface parking lot for the police department. That's going to be redone as kind of the headquarters of Prosperity Gardens. So, yeah.
So I normally don't ask a question, but what about Trader Joe's?
I know, what about
Oh, yeah.
What about Trader Joe's?
So Trader Joe's is one of those that we thought might follow Costco. We were talking to a broker from Trader Joe's pre-pandemic. We haven't heard anything from them since, so I don't know what their thinking is in terms of the potential of coming back. And at one point in time, they were working towards having stores in all the Big Ten communities, we had been told. And they've added them in a number of them, but not here yet. So, yeah.
Question and a comment. Trader Joe's has a website you can go to request them to
Yeah.
come to your community. So if you're interested in that, you could go there and request that.
Yeah, I think there's been a group that's done that multiple times.
The question is do you track the supply and demand of apartments and the need for apartments in Champaign? And if so, where do you feel we stand now as far as the need for apartments and the availability of apartments?
So we do to the best of our ability, but it's tough. It's tough data to get. Landlords hold it very close. But we just recently signed up for a service called CoStar, which tracks. They own apartments.com, and they've got more data about the rental market than anybody else. And what we suspected and what we now have some evidence is true is that our vacancy rates are very, very low across the board.
Even on campus?
Yeah, even on campus. But in particular at the affordable level, like this Champaign Park Apartments thing is a potential disaster because there is no place.
Right.
There just are not enough units available in our community to move people to if that just completely fails. So it's really concerning. There are some affordable products coming online. There's a apartment complex called Parker Glen up on North Neal that's getting close to being finished. That was a low-income housing tax credit project, and so it's there's some affordability requirements that go with that, and there's a couple others that are in the works, but it's slim pickings.
Have you seen much with Jimmy John selling and then some of those, or
jobs leaving the area? Has
So-
that been noticeable?
So for the most part, they've kept most of their corporate operation here in town. They've merged some things with the company that bought them out of Atlanta. You know, some of the financial services and things that they can concentrate and share across brands. But the way they've operated is they've kept their independent brands independent, and so a lot of the corporate operation, Jimmy John's, is still here in town.
Do we still see the same influx of people coming for training, or?
They're still doing training here as well, yeah, and that's been really good for our local hotels. I think it's just coming back. It definitely dropped off during the pandemic, but that is a real important part of their operation here.
And on the research part, that's all private development, correct?
It's correct.
Is Carl involved only on the school side, not in any of that development?
Yeah, they did build their orthopedics facility down there, but they're not. I don't think they're active in the research park otherwise. But there's a lot of major corporations that primarily because they want access to U of I talent, have data centers and research centers and the like in the park to get early access to the incredible talent out of the U of I. Yeah.
Do you foresee any stores going in over by the Kohl's area, and especially since Bed Bath & Beyond is closing down?
Well, so Ollie's is going in there in the old, Office Depot space. They're moving in there, and one of the fitness operations is going in the old Gordman space, I believe. So there will be at least a little higher level of activity over there.
You mentioned that Macy's is redoing. Do you know anything about that or how that affects?
Yeah, I think it's just a store refresh, remodel.
I
Yeah.
mean, they were close to Costco. Maybe it meant something.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. But you may have seen the paper. Dick's is they're closing Field and Stream, but they're building their fourth Dick's World of Sports, I think it is, which is an interactive store with a lot of batting cages and I think it'll be only their fourth one of these in the country. So I think is a good change for us. We had Gander Mountain make a run at it, and Field and Stream. We're just not a big hunting, fishing, camping kind of an area. We don't have that many natural locations, and it just seems like they can't quite make it go. So this seems like a good conversion to us. We're excited about it.
Anything new that you know of with Logic? With the change that happened for them?
Yeah, so Logic was a concept developed by Moose International, quite a deviation from the traditional Moose Lodge sort of mindset, and I don't think it's gone how they thought it was going to go, and so they closed all their food operations. We don't. The indications we're getting is that Moose is probably done, and they're gonna look to extricate themselves. Yeah.
My down low sources, which most of the time aren't real accurate, but had told me that at Chanute, the field there with the base, that there were two big operations that were at some point coming. One of them be the Army Corps of Engineers for a project, and the other one driverless vehicles. Now, obviously, there would be if that ever happens, there would be a big spinoff, and we would benefit. Have you heard anything about that, or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, we've got a group called Champaign County First that involves kind of a public-private partnership that goes and lobbies for funding for various Champaign County projects. And one of those has been the EV research and testing site at Rantoul, which would be a U of I project. It's part of their transportation research division, and it would be, they would build a track out there to test autonomous freight delivery, trucks, cars, the whole. But it's not funded yet at this point in time. There's a small operation out there right now, but if they're able to get the funding for the full blown,
That'd be either a state or federal funding
Yeah.
or something like that.
yeah. So we'll see. Yeah,
One last question about stores, maybe?
yeah.
So something you said piqued my interest was stores that follow Costco. So it's a two-part question. There's a new H Mart. Is that a store that follows Costco? And related, which types of stores would we follow?
Well, of course, Trader Joe's was one I was talking about. That's definitely one of the stores that, they're national chains that they oftentimes are located in the vicinity of each other. But other, top national chains, when they see another national chain have success, will sometimes follow. Our misfortune was Costco opened during a pandemic. They've done fairly well, but I think everybody's still kind of standing back on the sidelines, waiting to see, how it plays out over time. Whereas, if it opened in normal times, it might have gotten a more immediate response. Yeah.
What do you know about storage units, like air conditioned, non-air conditioned, development, growth? Like, is there any proposal on the table?
Yeah, well, we've been talking with a couple of different developers that are working on concepts. Both of them have some challenges to overcome yet, but we know one of them, Scott Garth, is a local operator. He's got 3 or 4 already in town. He's working potentially another location if he can get the zoning approvals he needs to do that. And the other one is actually when Home Depot took over the old Kmart property, the east end of that store, the building was bigger than they needed. And so there's been a vacant space on the east end of that store forever since they moved in there. The problem is that everybody that looks at that, there's a firewall requirement that Home Depot didn't build when they didn't build a firewall when they initially. They just built a regular tenant separating wall, and so somebody's been interested in doing storage in that space, but they're still trying to work through the logistics of meeting all the building codes.
Do you think there's a need?
Well, they tell us there is. I don't have a good sense of that, but more people are renting for longer stretches of time. Us boomers don't know when to get rid of stuff, so we store it. So I don't know. For a while yet, there's probably a need. Maybe when the boomers start, going along their way, that'll change. But right now, there seems to be demand for those facilities. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.